The following podcast contains spoilers and words that my mother would prefer I did not say. We watch thee. We watch thee. Hello everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome back to the greatest show on earth, We Watched a Thing, with your boys, B Dizzle and Dave. How you doing, mate?
I am very good. It's been movie week this week, so I'm happy.
It has. Yes, same. You can, if listeners can tell I'm in a good mood, it's because I've got the gusto back. I'm working less and I'm seeing more movies. I did a double feature on Monday. I'm going again tomorrow. It's going to be sick. In fact, I'm going to throw up a patron bonus this week, reviewing a couple of movies that we haven't had the chance to talk about yet. I'll probably do Joyride and No Hard Feelings, so that's going to be fun.
Which one of the is No Hard Feelings?
That's Jennifer Lawrence.
Like what appears to be to me, based on the trailer, a remake of Failure to Launch with horse-based Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cool. I'm actually looking forward to that.
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
Apparently, there's nudity galore, and it's actually quite funny. So, two big checks as far as I'm concerned. So,
well, speaking of two big checks, we've got two big movies this week, or at least big for me. I know that for the listeners, probably only one of these is actually like anticipatory.
Oh, boo! These were two of my most anticipated films.
Well, I'm excited, so let's get into it. We are going to talk about both Insidious: The Red Door and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. But let's do Insidious first. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's do this. Insidious: The Red Door is a 2023 American supernatural horror film directed by my boy Patrick Wilson, the most handsome man on earth, in his directorial debut, from a screenplay by Scott Teems, based on a story by Leigh Whannell and Teems. It's a direct sequel to Insidious Chapter 2 and the fifth installment in the franchise. It stars, of course, Patrick Wilson, Ty Simpkins, Rose Byrne, Andrew Astor, Steve Coulter, Whannell himself, Angus Sampson, and Lin Shaye reprising their roles. And what is it about, Dave?
We're pretty much a sequel to the first two films in the franchise.
Yes.
We're sort of carrying on 9 years after the events of Insidious 2. So we're back with Patrick Wilson and family. They had requested, is his name Carl? Is it Carl? I want to say Carl. I'm going to say Carl. To erase their memory so that neither of them would recall the events that had occurred, and they would no longer be able to go astral traveling, and they wouldn't know about the further, etc. Leaving poor old Rose Byrne just burdening this knowledge.
Yes.
So
no, wipe her memory too, for God's sake.
Unsurprisingly, 9 years later, their marriage has gone down the crapper.
Yeah.
Because he's basically sleepwalking through life because he's got this huge haze, brain fog, and so he's distracted. He's on the outs very much with Dalton, who is an art student by this stage, rocking very much the same hairstyle I did in my first year of uni.
Same.
And he's heading off to art school, but he's also troubled by nightmares and things, and both of them are sort of slowly start to come to terms with realizing that something's amiss, and they're not just crazy, and scary shenanigans and things start to happen. Jump scares start to come thick and fast, and they have to sort of soldier on and fight their way through it all.
Let's get straight into it. I know that I have heard you say on several occasions that you are a massive fan of this franchise, and that if this one stuck the landing, you would be putting this in like the best horror franchises of all time.
The reason for that, none of these I think would probably be in my top 5 or maybe even top 10 horror films. But I can't think of another horror franchise with no bad films.
See, I disagree on that. I love the first two. I think the first two are brilliant, and that's why I was so glad to be coming back into this story. I don't care for the prequels, particularly the last Geek Topher and I did on the show. We both hated
I
that.
seem to be on an island of one with this. I adore Lin Shaye, and I really like Leigh Whannell and Angus Sampson's characters. I think, yes, once Leigh Whannell took over directing, and whoever the fuck was the director for hire that they got on Last Key. But once James Wan wasn't directing, they did lean a little bit more into kind of those character. The franchise is Elise's story. It's not Patrick Wilson and family's story. And so, well, it is. I mean, Leigh Whannell's up until, franchise, not including this film, we'll get to this film, but for the 4 films prior, Leigh Whannell's written all of them. So they are a single cohesive story that it becomes apparent he intended to be essentially Elise's story. Yeah. She's introduced sort of gently in the first film, and the second one sort of looks at how things continued in her absence. Yeah. And then we get her backstory, and then we get the end of her story arc. So it's we're jumping around in the timeline, but we're seeing different parts of her story. Yeah. But when we started to spend more time with her, and therefore with
Whannell and Sampson.
I'll say comedy relief.
Comic relief.
Yeah, a little bit comic relief. Obviously, that lightens the tone. And they are less serious horror. Well, they're still serious horror, but they're less. There's more of a balance between scares and interpersonal stuff. Whereas,
yes, yeah, I like that we're back to the family drama. I like that this picks up that story and continues with that, because I actually think that first and foremost, apart from being good horror films, I do think that they are good family dramas.
Oh, for sure.
I love Patrick Wilson. I adore Rose Byrne. I think one of the biggest disappointments for me for the first half of this film is the lack of Rose Byrne. But yeah. But I'm actually okay with it. I really, really, really enjoyed this film.
Oh, good.
More than I was even expecting to. Where are you on?
Well, I mean, I was obviously very high on it because I love this franchise. Yeah. I knew we weren't going to obviously get much Lin Shaye. Lin Shaye, sorry. Which I was a bit sad about because she is my favourite character in all of these. But I was still very, very high. I was really looking forward to it. Then I read that the writer was the guy that gave us Halloween Kills and the Firestarter remake.
Yeah.
And my anticipation became much more tainted with dread. Because I wasn't expecting the directing to be... I mean, we all love Patrick, but first-time director, I wasn't expecting it to be as good. Weirdly, I think the writing's a little bit patchy, but I think the directing's actually pretty strong. He's done a good job, I think.
I think so too. I think the direction is strong. I think the writing is pretty strong as well. I actually enjoyed lots of this film.
There's some good scenes and some good moments. It was a little flat, and the pacing I found a little off, which I'm happily going to level at Scotty Boy, because we know he's demonstrably a shit writer. So,
what actually surprised me the most about my enjoyment of this film was the acting. I thought that Ty Simpkins, really our lead as Dalton, was fantastic. And given that here we are 10 years post Insidious 2, 12 years post the first one, when he was cast as a child, like a literal child. I think he's 21 now, so he was under 10 in that first film.
Drawing the obvious parallel on that front to Glass, I think child actor become adult actor in the same role. This was much better.
Well, honestly, like the truth of it is, it's been so long since those first two films. They could have recast very easily. But I don't know whether they just lucked out that he happened to actually wind up being a good actor, but he effectively carries this film. Like this
it's a two-hander. You're bouncing back and forth between your two leads, father and son, right up until the final act, and then you kind of get a little bit more screen time for annoying little brother and Rose.
But yeah, I thought he was fantastic, and I also liked his friend Chris from school, our new character. I did. You did not.
Annoyed the piss out of me.
Oh no, I liked her.
I'm not a fan, and it made that entire half of the film feel like fucking Scream 2, where you've got the annoying best friend who's too loud, too annoying, dresses in ridiculous clothes, and yeah, really.
No, I liked her. I was a fan.
I did not
and
care for
I'm
her.
a fan of the Scream franchise, so maybe that
So am I,
wasn't
but
for
Scream
me.
2 is not one of the good ones. So fucking, yeah, not a fan of that. Wasn't a fan of this lady.
Oh, no, I liked her. I honestly, I don't have much bad to say about this film at all. I think that this is a really solid entry. This might be, and I need to rewatch the first two again. This might be for me my favorite of the five.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought the parallel stories. I liked what was happening with Patrick Wilson's character, that kind of brain fog and his struggles.
I would have liked a little, because it's not a. I said it's a two-hander. It's not 50-50. It's more like 75-25. And I would have
this
preferred
is Dalton's movie.
a bit more, given that he's the character we're revisiting. Dalton was an annoying little kid who was in a coma for most of the first. He's a good child actor in those films. He's fine, but I wanted to know more about. I wanted more about how their marriage fell apart. They kind of drop a couple of lines about it, but given where they ended the second film, I think we needed a bit more between there and because you get the sense that they didn't break up yesterday. They've been apart for a while.
It's been a while. And I actually liked that progression and that storyline. Like, we are 10 years later, and what happened to them was truly fucked. Like, there is no surviving that. Like, so I actually quite like that is where the story went. And it shocked me at first when I was like, oh no, like these two characters and actors who I love and who did go through so much, they're broken up, and that kind of sucks. But about 10, 20 minutes in, I was like, no, that completely tracks.
Did you wait a whole week after you thought I was gone before you moved on? I mean, knowing what he's been through and the reason that he's got the brain fog and he's a bit distant and he's not, himself, surely there was some period of time before she went, this isn't fun, fuck off.
She probably did. Like, I mean, it's been 10 years since that last one, and honestly, he's pretty much a dick in this film. Like, you're right, he's not himself. Well, he's completely broken. Understandable.
He's broken.
Yeah. Which is hard to deal with.
Oh, yeah, completely. And I sound like I'm blaming her. I'm not blaming her, but I would have liked more conversation between the two of them where they could have dropped a few more hints about how they got to this place where they're not even speaking.
Yeah.
How did he and Dalton get to that point? Because it's not that they were having flashbacks to when he was crazy. That didn't come until very recently.
I think it was implied. No, I think it was implied to me that well, perhaps not with Dalton, but the younger brother obviously had been quite traumatized and was still having these flashbacks.
So, but
and
if that's
Rose
the
Byrne
case,
had been lying to him.
Yeah. So he's just kind of like, oh, Dad freaks me out a bit. I get him, but who cares about him? But Dalton, if he's having memories sneaking in, you would think that they would be memories of his dad saving him from the further.
Maybe, and that's why I love that final moment. He was the painting.
He didn't see the whole chase with the hammer thing. He was asleep for all of that. So I can understand why. I don't know why he's doing a painting of the dad with the hammer, because he missed that whole bit.
Yeah,
he was in the further. So the writing was a little bit sketchy around some of that, but I do think the direction carried it, the acting carried it.
Yeah,
some of my favorite scares in this whole of all 5 films were in this one.
I was just going to get to the scares. Let's talk about that, because obviously this is a horror film. I actually did not find this film very scary at all. And I mean, you and I are quite similar in that we love horror. We watch a lot of horror. We probably do have a pretty high threshold for scares and jump scares. There was at least one moment in this movie where I actually jumped, and it was like your traditional like ding, like loud jump scare moment that is literally designed to make you jump. But I don't think there were too many real scares in this film for me. Where were you on the scare level?
I mean, I was sitting almost alone in a theater.
Yep.
Which helped. There were probably about 10 people in the back row, and I was right down about 4 rows from the front. So every time someone went out to go to the toilet, they walked right behind me because I was in the back row of the front section. So that was good. There were a couple of jump scares that literally had me halfway out of my seat. The MRI scene I thought was really well done.
Yes. Yep.
And I was surprised actually that it wasn't Leigh Whannell directing because there were some touches. I don't know if Patrick Wilson was a big fan of The Invisible Man. Because there were a few scenes that had that same technique of
similar.
I'm going to linger the camera just a second too long on this empty and then using people out of focus that you don't quite see until they get. There were 2 or 3 points of that, which they were all nice touches. But I think this is the scariest that our friend Redface has ever been.
Yeah,
he was a. If you rewatch the first one, James Wan directs the scene well enough that it's a legitimate jump scare, but he's kind of goofy looking.
Yeah, and that happens.
In this, you see more of him, and he's fucking scary looking.
Yeah, he was.
Where he's choking out Chris, and I thought, oh God, here we go. Yep, finally, it's not good. Save her, spoilers, whatever. So she's writhing around, and you can't see what's choking her, and then suddenly he's there. You see him there.
Yeah,
he looked scary as fuck. I thought he looked brilliant.
Yeah, I really liked the whole look of this film, and I think you're absolutely right. I think Patrick Wilson has been very intently watching Leigh Whannell's work, both in this franchise and out of it, because, yes, Invisible Man was what came to my mind as well. Those lingering cameras where you're
100%.
looking for things in the background. I don't think it works as well here.
You could see his inexperience. I think that memory game he was doing on the window...
That, for me, was one of the best scenes.
It was great, but I think it dropped the ball at the ending.
Yeah,
you had him.
Yeah, okay.
I kept on waiting. I kept on waiting for him to lift one of the pictures up and have the picture itself be Redface or something.
Yeah,
which I think would have been good. But you had, I think, 2 instances where he's changing them over, and you see what turns out to be the dad image getting closer. But then there's no bit where he's up at the glass. He's just smashing through it. I was like, build it a bit longer. Come on.
I actually think that for me, that's what worked about that scene is how long it is. Where it's almost like Sideshow Bob with the rake, where it's like it goes on for too long, and then by the time it actually finishes, you're like, fuck, that worked for me. Because I was actually really invested in the memory game, because that, I think, is our strongest glimpse into just how fucked his memory is. Because I was furiously going like, it's right there, mate. You looked at it 2 seconds ago, and he doesn't know where it is.
Half the time where he lifts the pictures, we can't see what they are. We hear him say, "Oh, whatever," but they don't show them. And he looks at 2 pictures and then pulls them all down. I was like, "That's not how you play the game. Keep going, flip them all. What are you doing?" I think that
he was
scene
going
needed
until
more.
He couldn't.
Because it was a good scene. It was well conceived, and it was the best insight really we got into his struggles mentally.
Yeah,
and then I just thought it kind of ended with a bit of a whimper.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think that the jump scares that are there are executed very well, and there are quite a few of them. I just don't think that apart from the jump scares, there's a lot else there in terms of the scare factor.
I did like the attempts to call back to the first film.
Same.
I don't think they were... they weren't as good as Insidious 2. Insidious 2, I think, is just a masterful film in the way that Whannell has tied the story intricately back scene to scene into the first film, and considering they were made years apart, obviously he must have sketched multiple films out initially before they even made the first one, or they wouldn't have filmed the first one with gaps in it that you don't realise are gaps until they're filled in the second film. So it's obviously not that good, but I did like the glimpses back to, in particularly in the further to scenes from the first film. I thought that was all really nice. It's
made me want to go back and rewatch those first 2, because I remember enjoying them a lot, but it has been probably at least 5 years or so since I've seen them.
And watch 3 and...
I probably won't do that.
They're so good. I just watched them. The Elise story is so good, and that's what the one I liked the story of this, even though it kind of felt like a Scream film.
Yeah, I liked the university setting and everything, which you're right is very.
What I was hoping this would be, and this may have been the intent, because there was going to immediately after Last Key, they were already in pre-production on the 5th film, which isn't this one. It was a different story. And I'm assuming that it was following on from the end of Last Key, where you've got Elise. Is it the end of number 3? She visits a family who have an elderly daughter, well, not elderly, but an adult daughter named Alice, I think, who is in a vegetative state, sitting in a chair because she's mentally, she's off trapped somewhere.
Yeah.
Elise gets called in, visits her, looks over her shoulder and goes, "Oh my God," in a terrified voice. Roll credits, and they never fucking go back to this Alice character. It must be number 3 because it annoyed me. And ever since I've been going, that must have been intended to. She has never been referenced in any other film. It's obviously a big deal.
Yeah.
That has to have been what the 5th film was going to be. And I was looking forward to having that fucking question answered, and it's still not answered. It's going to annoy me forever. So I was bugged that wasn't what this film was, but I did enjoy this film for what it was.
Yeah. Well, all in all, how are you scoring this film?
Oh, I think I'm around about maybe a 6.5, maybe a soft 7.
Yeah, right. I'm an 8. I had such a great time with this film, and it has very much made me want to go back and watch those first 2, which I will do this week.
First 4.
Big fan.
What did you think of the kind of cameos for Angus Sampson and Leigh Whannell?
Actually, that's what I was just about to say. For me, this is the perfect amount of those characters. just that very quick YouTube clip. It references them. We get to see them, but that's all I need from those guys. That was my problem with Last Key.
Well,
Last Key was a movie about those two, really, and it was like
you didn't like Angus Sampson creeping on the younger women.
just not good. So for me, this was the perfect amount of that. Like, it was enough to reference it for the fans like yourself, but I don't need
Last Key was a bit too much of them. Lin Shaye, I thought that was a bit on the nose. It added nothing.
Right at the end.
Yeah, it added nothing.
It did add nothing. Yes.
The kind of TV cameo was, I thought, good for the boys. It tied them in. Without her, they've gone back to being those that, like the Nick Frost show, the sort of cheesy Ghostbuster types. They've reverted to that without her guidance and superpowers and whatever. That made sense, and it served a purpose in kind of helping us, I guess, by that Chris just in a matter of seconds accepts astral projection and demonic realms and things without batting a fucking eyelid. She's on board quicker than Dalton. As soon as he said, I fell asleep, got out of my body and came and visited you while you were asleep in your room. Her first thought is, well, obviously astral projection's a thing, not I'm calling campus security, you're a creeper. Anyway, but the Lin Shaye, I thought it didn't need to be there. They either needed it to be more and to put a nice kind of coda on her relationship with him because she's known him since he was a boy, and she's obviously now, sees his mum now that his mum's died. That I think could have had at least 30 seconds more to give it a little bit more weight. It just seemed like a tacky fan service nod at the end.
Which is what it was.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, all in all, though, I mean, a soft 7, 6.5 from you and 8 from me. Definite recommend from us here at the show. Let's get over to the second of the 2 films and see if that will also be a recommend. We are, of course, talking about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, a 2023 American spy action film directed by Christopher McQuarrie from a screenplay he co-wrote with Eric Jendresen. The sequel to MI Fallout and the 7th film overall. It stars, of course, Tom Cruise, Hayley Atwell, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, Vanessa Kirby, Pom Klementif, and Henry Czerny. And what is it about, Dave?
Oh, it's about Ethan Hunt doing some impossible shit.
Yeah,
lots of running.
MIF, because that's the best name ever.
This is going to be a fun conversation, I can already tell. We're introduced to ominous spectre of artificial intelligence known as the Entity, which every government wants to control and stop their enemies getting. Henry Czerny sends TC off with his team to try and recover a MacGuffin, because that's what happens in films, which in this case is a 2-part cruciform key, which is used to unlock something, which they don't actually know what it is. We do because we saw it in the cold open, but they don't. But it is the key to either destroying or controlling this AI. And we are then introduced to several familiar faces from the past, and one face that apparently is from the past, but we haven't actually seen before.
Actually, yeah.
And I mean, monumental action set pieces follow.
Yeah. This film has been widely anticipated by many, many people, of course. I know that lots of people enjoy this franchise. Lots of people who even maybe don't enjoy this franchise loved Fallout and thus were anticipating this one. It's had pretty good reviews across the board, although I have heard a lot of people, even those who were anticipating it, be more on the mixed side of things. Where did you land on this film after watching it?
Fucking rocks.
Okay, yeah, we are going to disagree here.
Right, you're allowed to be wrong sometimes.
I think that this is the definition of a mediocre film. I think this is so average, just completely average. It's not terrible. It's not great. The thing for me is I don't understand the people who rave, and maybe you'll be one of them. Maybe we're going to disagree even more.
You're about to talk about one of the greatest action films of all time, Mission Impossible Fallout, aren't you?
I'm going to talk about one of the greatest action films of all time, F10, because anyone who tries to claim that this film is any different from a Fast and Furious film is off their fucking rocker, because this is the exact same shit.
No, it is not.
There is nothing in this film that is this is so bloated with exposition. The dialogue in this film is beyond fucking atrocious.
Oh my God.
Most of the acting is very average. The CGI is fucking abysmal. Like, I'm sorry, the VFX work in this film is really, really bad.
There's no VFX in this film. Tom Cruise did all that shit.
See, this is the other thing that pisses me off. I fucking hate this rhetoric that people have that this is all practical. Sure, he does his own stunts. That does not mean that the film is fully practical. There is a shitload of
I feel like I've got a stick and I'm going,
so bad.
Dance, monkey.
Just honestly, so I saw this film with Topher, which was a real pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Topher and I have seen a lot of films together over the years, including the last Insidious film, The Last Key, which we had a lot of fun laughing through. This was the same. I cannot tell you, I don't think we've ever laughed harder in a cinema together than when the bad guy at the end yells out, Ethan! It is the worst moment in cinema history. We have been texting each other all week, just Ethan in all caps, because it is fucking bad, man. Like, again, I don't hate this movie. I just think it's perfectly average. This is just not a great film.
You don't think that all right, leave aside these films.
You have to agree that this movie's too long, right? And
I didn't feel the runtime at all. I heard Paul on the countdown say he thought the first half hour was boring.
Paul, almost entirely. Yeah,
I don't think it was boring at all. Yes, it was exposition heavy, and no, there were not just heavy. There wasn't big action. We didn't get to a big. There was some action, but we didn't get to the big action things for probably the first. Half an hour.
I actually think for me, one of the better action scenes in the film is the airport scene, which is not, sure, it's not actiony, but I think it's one of the most.
Half an hour in.
I think it's one of the most tense scenes with Simon Pegg down there looking for the. I
thought it was a great scene, but
one of the better scenes.
We've got like 20-something minutes of Hunt for Red October, and then some other stuff
before we even get the title.
That's about half an hour in, but I enjoyed the whole Red October intro bit. I thought that was quite tense. The enemy sub that's not there, and then it's there.
Poor taste, isn't it? Starting with a submarine exploding after what we just had. I don't know, man. That's kind of poor taste. I can't believe they didn't push this film back.
Maybe it was funded by Amazon and he thought it was funny. The airport scene, great action scene, very tense, very well crafted, I thought. But the kind of the big actions, we've got in a lot of ways, we're harking back to the first Brian De Palma film in many ways.
100%. This film wants to be that film, and it's very clearly harking back to it.
McHugh, I can call him McHugh, we're mates. As this is not like his previous films. They're obviously, this is, and I'm assuming the next film will be the same. It's designed to be a bookend to that first film. We get a flashback to
stuff that didn't actually happen.
Well, that happened prior to that first film. So before Ethan even joined the IMF, which is obviously that's the sort of thing you do at the end of a franchise. But we saw what led him into that first film. We've got a great big scene on a train, which harkens back obviously to the first one, which takes place for about half its runtime on a train. And just the general feel of it, the way the team relate, it's a different. It's a lot lighter and more kind of adventure film, whereas the previous few films have been very almost. This is Bond, and those films were Bourne.
Yes, definitely.
Which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the camaraderie between the team, I think, has always been strong. Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames. I do agree that they did Beck pretty dirty in this film. I know she's filming Silo and probably wasn't available for much and won't be for the next film, so that explains things. But Jeezy Haley Atwell's hot as fuck, but Jeezy bounces back quick.
I was going to say, for me, there's only one truly great thing about this film, and that's Haley Atwell. I think she's easily the best thing in this film. I loved her. I loved the character. I think that, what they did to Rebecca Ferguson is completely stupid. Even the whole pretense of, you need to make this choice, Ethan. Which one are you going to save? This woman that you met 24 hours ago who keeps stealing your shit and running away from you. That's literally all she's done since you met her, is stole your shit, run away. Or this woman who you supposedly love and have known for many, many years. Which one are you going to save, Ethan?
To be fair,
why do we give a fuck?
He didn't get to make that choice, so it's not like we had him making a stupid choice.
No, so why is that even a thing? Why are we even throwing that out?
Because they're building up Haley Atwell to be the next Beck Ferguson.
Yeah,
so you've got to put them on
franchise being
You've got to put them on a level pegging somehow before you erase
this is where I don't understand how people can have any kind of pretense that this is better than Fast and the Furious. It's the same thing. You've got a team of people doing stuff that just is not even possible with stuff that shouldn't be possible.
All right, no,
how is the Entity any different to the God's Eye? We all laughed at that at the time. The God's Eye is more realistic.
It's not. AI taking over the world may not be happening now, but it's going to happen eventually.
I think that AI is a very real problem, but I think the problems that are kind of more relevant and realistic with AI are not it taking over the world.
It's it writing films like Fast 10. But you can't. The stuff that happens in the Fast and Furious films is physically impossible. It's ludicrous. The stuff that happens in Mission Impossible is unlikely, but nothing breaks the laws of physics. It's just unlikely that you would survive them because obviously Ethan Hunt's elevated. He's a superhero.
We only need to look at the final action scene with the train falling down. Like that's just. It's very unlikely that you would survive it, but he's a super agent. He can do stuff we can't. That would happen. It's unlikely that would happen. How many carriages did we need to see fall? That scene just kept going, and that was the biggest.
What part of that
CGI
broke the laws of physics? It would fall. That's what physics does. If this was Fast and Furious, they probably would have floated off into space. But they fell towards the earth like they should. The things broke off in a tense way.
Not at that speed, I don't think. I think it's either going to fall or it's not. I don't think we're going to have 20 minutes between each carriage slowly pulling it down.
You have to wait for the weight of the carriage to break the big, strong metal coupling things. That's what slowed it down.
I think before it broke the coupling, it would just pull the next carriage down.
Well, it was slowly.
I think it would just pull it down.
It had the weight of the other carriages holding it in place. I think you'll find this all makes complete sense. And what a fucking scene. It was amazing.
I disagree. For me, that was one of the worst action scenes. Like,
it wasn't the best. I think
terrible.
Was probably the car chase, which I think was magnificent.
Oh, geez. And again, I've heard people tout that. I cannot tell you how overplayed a car chase through cobblestone streets of a European city has become.
We've seen it by everyone.
Yeah, we've seen it in every single
harken
movie
back
ever
to
for
For
the
Your
last
Eyes
10
Only, where they
years.
drive
We
around,
just had
race
the
around that
exact
little yellow
same
car.
scene. We just had the exact same scene in Indiana Jones. We had the exact same scene in Fast 10, but with a bomb as well. Like, I just think it's
in
so
Fast 10,
played
it was
out at
fucking
this
ridiculous.
point.
The Indy
I just
one
think
was
it's so
fun.
played out.
This one was some of the best driving I've seen in years. I thought it was really, really good. And
Maybe
you had
it's that- maybe
Hayley
it's that
Atwell's
I'm not a car.
personality all over the top of it, apologising to people as she smashed through their Vespers.
Yeah, that was the best thing about it. I just for me, I found the movie too long, and I find the dialogue very clunky and poorly written. I don't think there's like a good line in this entire film. I think some of the action's decent. I think it's fun to watch. I think the score is great, but so much of that is harking back to the original. For me, I just found it really.
Are you going? Do you want to have a stab at the big action drive off the cliff?
At him jumping off the motorbike.
He drove a motorbike off a cliff and then parachuted through the side of a fucking train. It was amazing.
He did, and that's great. But they CGI'd so much of it that why bother doing your own stunts? And this is the thing that annoys me about it.
Apparently, he did about 8 test runs as well. I thought he just.
We've all seen the footage. We've all seen it, and this is kind of what annoys me is that they use that shot of him driving off to kind of tout how practical this film is. His face is not even practical in the film. It's I'm not joking. It's no secret that for about the last 10, 15 years, it has been a clause in his contract that his face is redone and de-aged. Like, that's no secret. It's been that way for quite a while.
Really? Well,
they take at least 5 years off his face. I think it's closer to 10. Like, when you're doing that amount of work on the film, why bother doing your own stunts? Like, it's not like he actually parachuted onto a train. Sure, he jumped off a cliff off a motorbike, but the entire landscape that we see in the final film is CG. Like, that's not where he jumped. So I just don't know why that's what we're touting as amazing, because it still ends up looking so fake anyway.
If the whole thing was CG and he wasn't actually riding the bike or anything, I reckon you'd see it.
You don't think you see it anyway?
I wasn't looking at the landscape. I was looking at his face billowing in the wind as he tried to talk, which I thought was great.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm probably being too harsh, and I think again, I'll say it again, I don't think the movie's bad. For me, it's just a perfectly average film. I think it could have been improved a hell of a lot with a better screenplay, with a tighter screenplay that was not so bogged down with exposition. Like, we are literally hearing the same things 10, 15 times in the first half hour of this film alone, and it doesn't let up there. It keeps going. Let me ask what you thought of our villain character, who is kind of retconned into the film. Yeah.
I like S.A. Morales. I think his character... we really only get one line to give his character some justification. No, not Mendoza. I think it's Beck Ferguson when they're all comparing notes, and she says so she's had dealings with him or something, and they say, how do you know? And she said, well, because everything's been erased, and she said says something about, he it's not even killing people. He thrives on suffering or something. So he's a psychopath, and that's why the entity has selected him, because it knows he's not going to weaken at any point in his resolve, because he wants to cause all of this chaos. But there could have been more done to. And I'm assuming they're saving that for the second film, because they're obviously going to give some resolution to this girlfriend or whoever it is that he killed that made Ethan to the point where he accepted the offer.
That's my biggest problem, is that they pretend like we're learning something about Ethan, but we're actually not. Like, we see in a movie that's, in my opinion, far too long, almost 3 hours, we get maybe 30 seconds in a flashback that is so quick that I don't know about you, but I actually spent a minute going, I don't remember that. I thought that it was actually footage from the first film at first, because they even put grain on it.
It predates the first film, because it's the event that triggered him to accept Kittredge's offer and join the IMF.
But it is so quick. In my head, I was like, oh, is that, that great opening scene of the first one where like the entire crew dies?
Yeah.
In my head, I was going, is that from that scene? And of course it's not.
No.
But it's so
But
quick.
it is
and
very
adds
similar.
Nothing to the film.
It's similar to the point of almost being an identical setting to where Kristen Scott Thomas dies in the first film.
Yes, which is what I thought.
For a moment, I thought that they couldn't be bothered de-aging her and they just got someone else to play. Although the scene is different. She's not in, doesn't.
Yeah. So for me, that was my biggest problem with his character, is that kind of flashback is not actually doing anything to develop anyone. It doesn't give us anything about either Ethan Hunt or the bad guy whose name I don't even remember.
Gabriel.
Gabriel, yeah.
I guess because I enjoyed the film overall, I'm kind of giving it the benefit of the doubt that this will all be tied up in a bow in the second film, whereas because you didn't really enjoy the film as much, you're probably quite rightly going, this film on its own merits, that's a failing. And it is. I
guess that's the thing for me.
It would have been better, I think, if they hadn't bothered to give this guy any backstory. He was just a mysterious guy who somehow disappeared off, in real time, off security cameras and everything, and that was just a mystery until the second film. I think that would have been better.
I agree, because, I think he's so flat and one note that I'm almost wondering if he is the entity, like if he is like a personification of the AI. But that's how it comes across. He's got zero personality.
If he pulls off his face, mask style, and he's got like the Terminator head, that will be fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I feel like, yes, it sounds like I've been just shitting all over this film. Again, I don't think this is a bad film. I think there are some decent scenes in it. Like I said, I think the airport is a lot of fun. The car chase scene, I think, is fine. I don't think it's better than we've seen in any other version of that scene in every film in the last 10 years, but I think it's good.
Better car chase than Fast 10, whatever.
I think that there's lots of fine things about this movie, but I think for me, that kind of sums up how I feel about the movie.
What did you think of Pom? Because obviously we not only had Peggy Carter, we had Mantis as well.
I was just going to get to that, and Again, I don't want to sound like I'm shitting all over this movie. She is the only thing about this movie that I truly hated and thought was actually just terrible. Like, a lot of the movie I thought was fine.
Better than Ruby Rose in John Wick 2.
Jesus, I hated her. She is just so over the top. I mean, I hate her as Mantis, and I can't believe that she's managed to do something even worse than that, in my opinion. I'm guessing that you liked her?
I thought she was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, she's basically playing for the first two acts, she's playing the same role as Ruby Rose in John Wick 2, and she's fucking better than that.
I mean, again, I think the thing for me is that she has no character, she has no personality. We don't know why she's there or why she
does have a personality. No, she's French.
Yeah, but that's not a personality.
Sure it is.
There's one shot that really did it for me where she's chasing them in the car and she just randomly lets out this maniacal laugh and I'm like, oh no, she's fucking bad. She is just bad. The character's bad. She's playing it bad. That whole, I quite liked the fact that she saved them at the end, but it actually didn't make any sense as a character turn. What, because the guy said that she was going to betray him? So I don't know.
Ethan had spared her life and saved her. And that opened her eyes to the fact that the world didn't suck and that not everyone was awful and maybe she was following the wrong person. And then he stabbed her and that confirmed her suspicions.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about this film?
No, I'm sad we won't get Beck in the next one, but it does mean that even if they hadn't already announced that we'll get more Silo, so I'm pleased about that.
I mean, like I said, I think for me the best thing about the film was Hayley Atwell anyway. I thought she was fantastic.
I adore her, so...
and I liked her character. I liked that, unlike the rest of them, she actually kind of has some stakes in her personality. Like, she's not just on this mission for... that's kind of what annoys me about these movies. Like, I love Simon Pegg. I love Ving Rhames. I think, you're right, the camaraderie between them all works well. But they have no personality other than, well, this is the mission. We choose to accept it. Like, whereas I like that she's more kind of pulled in. She doesn't really have a place, but she's just a fucking gun. Like, I liked her character.
I loved her.
That worked really well.
I'll tell you who else acted really well in this. Vanessa Kirby.
Yeah, this is the most I've ever liked her in anything. I'm not usually a huge fan of Vanessa Kirby, and I thought she was good.
Obviously, doing her White Queen thing, we've seen that before in previous films. I like that character in general. I like that she's the daughter of Vanessa Redgrave from the first film, so having her back was yet another callback to that. But I think where she really shone was when she was playing Hayley Atwell playing her
character, yeah.
And I didn't... A couple of the little nuances I didn't even realise until I heard Hayley Atwell being interviewed. And she does the same hair flick that Hayley Atwell did in the car chase. And in the car chase, it wasn't part of the script. Atwell's hair got in her eyes, and so she did this cool, like, blow it out. And then Kirby did the same thing when she was meant to be. And little things, I thought she was great playing the two versions of herself.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I liked her. Yep.
Henry Czerny, always good to have back. We're both big Revenge fans, so that was good.
Yes.
You haven't mentioned someone that I'm surprised you haven't mentioned, knowing what I know about you.
Oh, Carrie Elwes. Yes. Again, a great part of the film.
He's already offended because you described Patrick Wilson as the most attractive man alive only about half an hour ago.
Oh, they are a tie for me. Tell you what, Carrie Elwes somehow still has it going, doesn't he? Like, he's an old man now, and I'd still probably take chubby in the cheek.
Tom Cruise's guys giving him a 5-year makeover.
He doesn't need it. Yeah, I cannot tell you. I literally cheered in the cinema when Elwes rocked up because I didn't know he was going to be in it. Did you know he was in this film?
No, I didn't. And it was I was already thinking, geez, I'm going to miss Alec Baldwin because I really liked him last time around. And just, okay, we've got a worthy replacement.
Yeah, I fist pumped in the cinema. That was the best thing. Again, I don't think his character was very well written. I don't think his motivations were clear at all. But hey, it's Carrie Elwes. I'm cool with that.
Speaking of Elwes and completely out of left field, have you seen, there's a film he did 1 or 2 years ago that's this weird anachronistic 1970s style, kind of an Umbrella Academy style story where he's the Professor X character, and it's a kind of coming back together of a child superhero team that he didn't grow them in test tubes, but he kind of made them, and then they all went their separate ways, and they come back together. And the whole thing's... I'll have to look up what it's called. I can't remember.
I gotta check that out.
It's super fucking weird. It's really, really stylized and feels like it was made in the late 60s, early 70s.
I am definitely going to check that out.
Yeah, no, you'd like that.
Nice. All right. Well, all in all, how are you scoring? Mission : Impossible hyphen what's it called? Dead Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning ellipsis part full stop 1 ampersand. I'm an 8.
An 8. Okay.
Yeah, I think Fallout for me was like a 9.5.
Yep.
I think Rogue Nation's about a 9. So yeah, this would be an 8.
Okay, I'm a 5. Like I said,
kill me.
Like I said, I just think it's perfectly. A 5 is not a bad
Fast
score.
10 and 9.
Because here's the difference. Fast 10 knows what it is. The only person in Fast 10 who is pretending that Fast 10 is better than it is Vin Diesel. Everybody else in Fast 10 recognizes that it is pure entertainment, shit, fun, it's crap, it doesn't matter. They all recognize that, and because of that, it's fun.
Everyone in this knows what they're in. They know they're in an action masterpiece.
No, this movie is pretending it is a masterpiece when it is not. I stand by. It's great that Tom Cruise does his own stunts. He doesn't need to do it when the film looks the way it does, when the film is written the way it does. This is not a fucking masterpiece of a film. Just admit what it is and make it fun. Cut half an hour out of this film. Make this film 2 hours tops and more fun, and I would have enjoyed it. But this movie is not fun. It's just poorly written trash.
Got a standing ovation in my cinema from the teenagers.
Oh, I bet it did. I bet it did.
I know
that I'm mostly alone here. I'm not completely alone. I've seen plenty of reviews on Letterboxd that are even more scathing than mine. I don't think this film's terrible. I've seen a lot of people say it is. I just think it's just completely middle of the road. Like, what it does fine, but it's not doing anything especially extraordinary.
Yeah, I don't think it's not perfect by any stretch, but I think the action scenes were outstanding. And
see, I'm gonna tell you something here. This movie don't have shit on Con Air or The Rock. If you want to go to action masterpieces, that's where I'm going.
I'm Stanley Goodspeed. Yeah,
Dave has hung his head in shame. People.
I was going to say, though, is applauding in cinemas a thing now? I've never seen it in my life. I do it every now and
then as a gag.
Both films. So Monday night, I saw Insidious, then I went and had some nachos, and then I went and saw Mission Impossible. Both films had people standing up clapping at the end.
I wonder.
And I don't think either of them were that
showing their support.
No, these were just fucking teenagers being weird and annoying.
I do it as a gag sometimes. If I'm seeing a movie with a mate and I think it's pretty trash, at the end I always go, I dare you to clap.
I only do it in Shia LaBeouf films because I feel it's appropriate. I do my Citizen Kane clap for actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Well, there you go. That is our thoughts on Insidious, The Red Door, and Mission Impossible, whatever this one's called. What are we getting to next week, mate? I think we have to get to another double feature given what's getting released.
What have we got? God, there's so much shit. I want to see Meg 2. That looks fucking amazing.
We got to do Barbenheimer.
Barbenheimer, of course. God,
yeah, we got Barbie and Oppenheimer both on the same day. I know, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So I think we have to, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And then week after that, we're going to have to get back to our bloody required viewing. I've forgotten the things I'm supposed to watch already.
And I'm really hoping that both Barbie and Oppenheimer are good because I already pissed fanboys off this week. I don't want to have to do it again next week.
The Nolan boys are going to be listening very intently to you, my friend.
Our Tenet review was our first massive slew of 1-star ratings. So, I'm prepared. I'm hoping it's good. I'm not expecting it to be, but I'm hoping it is.
I've already texted Nolan and thanked him for his film and let him know I'm going to be watching it intently on my iPhone.
Yeah. All right, well, there you go. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can check out our new bonus series where we're looking at classic albums that we think are flawless.
Yes.
You can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and we'll catch you next week.
Cheerio!